Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Pei Zayin, Daf Pei Ches, Daf 88 of Masechta Yevamos. Friends, well, we got quite a bit to do L'maisa on Daf Pei Zayin, but we're starting the 10th parak of Masechta Yevamos. We're going to talk about a situation where a woman's husband went away and then he died, and now she wants to get remarried and stuff. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about whether one witness is believed. Interesting sugya. And and also try to figure out the situation of when like her husband dies and turns out maybe he's not dead. So that's what we're talking about. Of course, there's some people yelling outside. Yeah, I wonder why he's yelling. I guess I wonder this pretty often. I've asked you before, you guys don't just go outside and just yell, right? That would be weird, right? I don't know. Guess it's not weird around here. Well, Daf Pei Zayin Amud Beis, about halfway through the page at the new Mishnah. So if you have a woman and she's married and her husband went traveling, all right, see the world, okay, and then they came and they say, hey, Meis Bailich, your husband Wellwood. Venices, so then she get, okay, her husband's in Wellwood, so she went and she got married. And guess who shows up? Her husband. Apparently he wasn't in Wellwood, he was somewhere else. So then she can't remain married to either one of them. Okay, she needs to get a get from both of them. Okay, and she can't claim her ksube, or nichse tzon barzav lo peris, not nichse milug, or not she can't ask for money back for any fruits that were eaten from the nichse milug, v'lo mizonis, or payment for food, v'lo blois, or these garments that got worn out and she can ask for them back. She can't do any of that stuff. Lo alzeh v'lo alzeh, on neither husband. V'im not lo mizeh u'mizeh tachzir, and if she took from either one, so she has to give it back. V'avolod mamzer mizeh u'mizeh, and the child will be a mamzer from either husband. So from the second husband, the child will be a mamzer because she's an eshes ish, but from the first husband, it's midor abonon. V'lo zeh v'zeh mitamila, if the husband is a kohen, he cannot become tomitor. V'lo zeh v'zeh zakoyim lo b'mtziosov lo b'ma'asiyadeh lo b'aforis nedoel, and neither husband would be able to chaperine things that she finds, or things that she makes, or annulling her vows. If she was a Bas Yisrael, then she'll no longer be able to marry a Kohen. And if she's a Bas Levi, she cannot eat Meiser. I guess assuming like Rav Meir, who says that only Levim can eat Meiser. Uvas Kohen min Trume, if she's a Bas Kohen, she cannot eat Trume. Ven Yorshin, Shelza v'Yorshin, Shelza Yorshin is Ksubaso, and neither the inheritors of neither husband would be able to inherit the Ksube. Okay, apparently the Gemara is going to explain what that means. V'meisu echov shelzeh ve'echov shelzeh cholton v'lo miyabmin. So, and if either of the husbands die, so then the brothers do chalitza, they do not do yibum. Rabbi Yossi Omer says, Rabbi Yossi ksubasa nichse bayla arishin. So Rabbi Yossi says that she does have a ksube, and it'll be based on the first husband. Rabbi Lazar Omer says, Rabbi Lazar arishin zakar b'mtziosov ma'asi adeh of afaris nedarel, says Rabbi Lazar that the first husband will merit to things that she finds, things that she makes, and annulling her vows. Rabbi Shimon Omer says, Rabbi Shimon biyoso o chalitzos me'echov shel rishon poteres tzaraso. Says Rabbi Shimon that if the first one dies and then one of his brothers does yibum or chalitza, well then that works, and the tzara wouldn't have to worry about yibum or chalitza. Ve'en avolad mimenu mamzer, and the child from the first husband would not be a mamzer v'niseis shelo b'rshus, and if she got married without permission, meaning if it was two witnesses who came to say that her husband went to Wellwood, so then I mean, she doesn't have to go to Bezdin. There's two witnesses. I mean, two witnesses are good, are reliable. So muteres lachs are low. Well, then if the husband then shows up and he says, "Hey, it's me. I wasn't in Wellwood." So then if he shows up, well then if she got remarried based on two witnesses, well then she would be able to go back to her original husband, because it was onus. Nises al pi bezdin teitze, if she got married based on bezdin, i.e. there was only one witness who came to testify that her husband was in Wellwood, and bezdin says, look, there's a witness, we can treat, we can assume that he's that he's dead, and that you can get remarried. And then apparently the husband comes back from Wellwood, or apparently he wasn't at Wellwood, so bezdin teitze uftuim min hakorban. So while she would be unable to remain married to the new husband now that the original husband came back, but she would not have to bring a korban chatas, because after all, bezdin said that she was allowed to get married. Lo nises al pi bezdin, if she did not get married based on bezdin, i.e. there were two witnesses, well then teitze, and then the guy shows up, so teitze, she cannot remain together with the second guy. B'cheves b'korban, she has to bring a korban chatas. Yofer koich bezdin, and the strength of bezdin is chazak, is stark. Shepotra min hakorban, that if bezdin ruled that she's allowed to get married, then she does not need to bring a korban chatas. So ruah bezdin linosei v'ocha v'kilkila. If bezdin says, okay, you can get remarried, right? So one witness came, said that that her husband was in Wellwood. So then if bezdin says, okay, you can get remarried, but then she didn't get remarried, she just had some other relationship, chayeves b'korban. Then she will be chayeves to bring a korban if the original husband shows up, because bezdin only permitted her to get married to somebody else. They did not permit her to have a separate relationship with somebody else. And therefore, if she had a separate relationship with somebody else, and her husband comes back, it turns out it wasn't in Wellwood, so then she would have to bring a korban chatas, even if bezdin had initially said that she was allowed to get remarried. It says the Gemara, from the fact that the Mishnah says at the end that if she gets married without permission, so then she's permitted to go back to her original husband. Shlobishus bezdin el be'edim, so it means without the permission of bezdin, rather there were two witnesses. So then the first part, when it talks about that she gets married with the rishus of bezdin, so it's talking about where there is one witness, and bezdin says that she can get married. We want to argue that one witness is able to be believed, that bezdin is believing just one witness. We also learned in the Mishnah that they say that a woman is allowed to get married if it's one witness from another witness, v'isha mipi isha, and a woman from another woman, v'isha mipi eved, or even if a woman testifies from a slave that the husband went to Wellwood, mipi shifcha, or from a maidservant. So we see that one witness is believed. Alright, right? It says aid mipi aid. Alright, v'tananami, we also learn in the Mishnah, if one witness says, hey, fellow, you ate chaylev, he says, what are you talking about? I didn't eat chaylev, potter. So he's take potter. Time of the Omer, the reason why he's potter is because he says, I didn't do it. But if he was quiet when he was accused of eating chaylev, well then he'll be believed. Ama it echod mehemen. So we see that one witness is trusted. Where do we see in the Torah that one witness is believed? The Tanya is learned by that if his his sin was made known to him, but not that other people let him know and he doesn't acknowledge it, but he has to acknowledge it. Is it possible that even if he doesn't contradict the fellow, then he'll be patur tamlama ohoda elav mikol makom? No, if it's let known to be, or if it's let known to him, right, that he did a sin, even if it's one fellow lets him know that he did this sin, so he's going to be chayiv unless he contradicts it. What's this talking about? If we're talking about where two witnesses came and he didn't contradict them, why do I need a pasuk to teach me that he's going to be chayiv? Two witnesses told him he did something wrong. Of course he's going to be chayiv. Elav chad. Rather, we're talking about one. And when he doesn't contradict them, so then the witness is believed. So we see that one witness is believed. How do we know that in this situation, when you have one witness who testifies and he's believed, how do you know it's because one witness is believed? Maybe it's because the other fellow kept quiet. And shtika keodah, being quiet is like admitting guilt. Teda de katani sefer, you should know that it says later in that price, so if two people said, hey fellow, you ate chelev, he says, what are you talking about? I didn't eat chelev, potter. Reb Meir says he's taka chayv. Reb Meir kavachomer. The Meir says, look, I can prove it to you logically. You hear what Reb Meir says? He says that, look, if by capital punishment, two witnesses come and say, hey fellow, you did a capital crime, and he says, I didn't do it, they're believed. Well then certainly, if they come and say, look fellow, you ate chelev, and he says, I didn't do it, certainly they're going to be believed there as well. Amrulot, the rabbis who say, no, he'd be potter, they say, my mirtzelomer mezir ayisi, that but when it comes to chelev, he can always just say, I did it on purpose. And if he did it on purpose, then he'd be potter, right? Because from a korban chatas, right? If he ate chelev by accident, so he's chayiv a korban chatas. Now, if he says he did it on purpose, then he's chayiv kars. He doesn't bring a korban chatas. Now, when it comes to like a capital case, if he says that he did it on purpose, then obviously he's going to be killed also. So so Meir says that if he denies eating chelev to two witnesses, he would be chayiv, whereas the rabbi said he'd be potter. Now Reisha, my time will come chayiv rabbanon. Now in the Reisha, when this one Shimon comes to Reuven and he says, Reuven, you ate chelev, and he keeps quiet. So how come the rabbis are going to say that he's going to be chayiv over there, even though he says that he's going to be potter in the case of two witnesses and he denies it? So if it's because the one witness is believer, but in general, even though in general, when you have two witnesses, they are believed, even if the accused argues against them, and yet they're saying by the chelev he would be potter. Well, if we don't believe two witnesses in that case, certainly we're not going to believe one witness in that case. Rather, the rabbis would say in the Reisha is chayiv because he kept quiet, vishtika keodoya, and keeping quiet is like admitting guilt, damya. So back to our question, how come in our Mishnah, when one witness comes and says to this woman that her husband went to Wellwood, that the witness is going to be believed, right? So it's logical. Well, it's like, for example, if you have a piece of fat, and we're not sure, is it chelev, which is forbidden fat, or is it shuman, which is permitted fat? One fellow comes and says, I'll tell you something. I know for sure, I know for a fact, it's shuman, it's permitted fats. The meheman is believed. But we say, one second, midami, chosm is chazak isura. So the Gemara says, one second, these are not comparable cases. The case of the fat, we don't know, is it chelev, is it shuman? It could be either one. And it really depends which way the wind is blowing. We really don't know which one it is. One guy comes and says, listen, it's Shuman, we could believe him. Over here, there's taka chazaka that she's a married woman. And if she's taka, a married woman, so then there's a chazaka that she's married. And therefore, to undo that chazaka, we can't just trust one fellow to say that he knows that the husband went to Wellwood. And when it comes to arayos, you need two witnesses. You know what this is similar to? It's like a piece of meat that's certainly chayla. And then one guy comes and says, I know that it's shuman, it's permitted fats. In that case, he would not be believed, because we know for sure that it's forbidden fats, it's chayla. Midomi, we say, but come on, that's not similar to our case. Even if 100 people came and said that it's permitted fats, they would not be believed, because we know that this is chayla. We saw it, pashit, removed from the animal. It's definitely chayla, people. So hachla came into also beitrei mehemne. But let's say over here that since if two people come and said that they saw her husband go to Wellwood, so they would be believed. So then let's say that even one would be believed. Similar, right? Just like by tevel, hektish and konomos, tevel echidami. What are we talking about with tevel, with untied stuff? Well, if it's his untied stuff, well, one person is believed with regard to that because he can always fix it. It's in his power to fix it. Well, maybe it belongs to somebody else, but my kasover. If your opinion is that Shimon can just separate Truma from Reuven's stuff without his knowledge, well then I understand why I would believe him that the stuff is tied, because Shimon has it in his power to tie it himself. But if you hold that Shimon would need the consent of Reuven in order to separate Truma Semaisis for him, the Omar on Yodaina be the Misakin, and Shimon says, look, I know that Reuven set aside Truma Semaisis, he grew from Minol, and how do I know that he would be believed? Hektish Nami, also when it comes to Hektish. If we're talking about where he just donated epis to the temple treasury, it's because he can always redeem that Indian. Oh, Kedushas Haguf, or if it's some an animal that he donated to go on the Mizbeach, if it says it's because he's able to go to a Chacham and say, hey, I actually don't want to offer this animal as a korban, and he can undo it. Rather, it must be somebody else. And he says, look, but I know that his owner asked the Chacham to permit it. He gufe minolam, but how do I know that he would be believed in that case? Konomos nami, also by konomos. Iksav yesh me'ila bekonomos. V'kedushas dom nachtalu. If you say that by konomos, like vows, right? That I guess you vow that you're gonna, give epis to the base of Mikdash or something. Fine, and it's kedushas dom nachtalu, so now it has monetary value. Mishum diabel to be able to lift also, you can always redeem it. Iksav ein me'ila bekonomos. Iksav yesh me'ila bekonomos v'kedushas dom nachtalu. So if you say that there is me'ila, right, that if you get benefit from it, you have to bring an osher me'ilos, and there's kedushas domim, there's monetary value on it. So mishum to be able to lift also, you can always redeem it. Iksav ein me'ila bekonomos. If you say that there's no me'ila by konomos, v'yesu ba'amu derachiv lu akisvein, it's just a simple yeser ididei. If it's his, mishum to be able to it truly all, you can always just, if it's just considered basically like a neder, so you can always go to a chacham to be matir the neder. El da'acher v'amanu yadani dit shomari ole. Or, but if it's somebody else's konam thing that he designated to the Bedek Kabayis, so and he says, look, but I know that guy did Ataras Nadarim, but he gufei minol, and how do we know I could prove him so Ella? So how in the world do we know that if one person comes and says that this woman's husband went to Wellwood, how do we know that we could believe him? Ella Amar Ibzer rather says Ibzer tochomer shechma ta'ale b'sofek ta'ale b'tchila. Because since it's so stringent, if in the end it turns out that the fellow is alive, so they got to get divorced and mamzers and all sorts of stuff. So because we're so stringent at the end, so that enables us to be more lenient, to permit her, because since she is concerned that if he does end up being alive, so then she's going to have all these stringencies, so she'll be careful, and that's why we're enable us to be lenient for her to be able to get married, because she'll check and make sure that he's really in Wellwood. Well, why don't you just not be machmer at the end and don't be makel at the beginning? But out of concern to prevent a situation of agunas, of people who are stuck in a marriage that they can't get out of, so to prevent that, we say, look, let's just be more stringent at the end to enable us to be more lenient, to allow her to get remarried. So now moving on in our Mishnah, so we said in the Mishnah that if she is married and then a witness comes and says that her husband's in Wellwood, right? Because he was traveling, and then they say your husband, he's in Wellwood. So then and then he comes back, so he wasn't in Wellwood. So then we say that she can't remain with either the first husband or the second one. Now says Rav that when we say that she can't remain married to either one, that's only when she got married to the second husband based on one witness. But the assumption right now is that what Rav is saying is that if when she got remarried, it was based on two witnesses, i.e. she was married to the first guy, and then two witnesses come and say, hey, the first guy, Wellwood. So then, based on the testimony of the two witnesses, she got married to a second fellow. So in that case, even if the first guy shows up, she could remain married to the second fellow. They Pashat laughed at Rav in Eretz Yisrael. I'm in Eretz Yisrael, I'm not laughing at Rav. I'm not laughing at Rav. If it's funny, I laugh. If it's not funny, I don't laugh. Well, whatever. Let's go weiter. So they laughed at Rav. I don't know what they thought was so funny. I don't know. Do you guys think it was funny? What was funny? Maybe I missed the joke. Maybe, you know what I bet it is? I bet you had to be there. Let me tell you, you had to be there. They laughed at Rav in Eretz Yisrael. Also, Rav, the original husband shows up, and you're saying she could remain married to the second guy, even though her original husband showed up, which means that she's still married to him. So, well, we don't recognize him. He went traveling somewhere, two witnesses came back and said, your husband's in Wellwood. She gets remarried. Some guy comes back claiming to be her husband. We don't even recognize him. So she could remain married to the second fellow. But if we're talking about a situation where we don't recognize the fellow who's claiming to be her husband, well then even when she got married to the second guy based on only one witness, she should still be able to remain married to the second guy, because we don't know who the heck this guy is who's claiming to be her husband. She doesn't even recognize him. So says the Gemara, yeah, but we're talking about a situation is where, okay, so you have this man and woman, they're married. He then goes traveling somewhere. Two witnesses come and say, hey, wife, your husband's in Wellwood. So then she goes and she marries some other fellow. Now, some guy now shows up claiming to be her original husband. She says, dude, I really don't think that you're my original husband. But then two other witnesses come and vouch for the fact. They say, no, we were with this guy, your husband. Should we call him Chaim Yankel? Chaim Yankel. That's like one of the classic names, Chaim Yankel. Whatever, we won't use Chaim Yankel. Even though it's a good name, we won't use it. Anyways, so they come and say, no, this really is Chaim Yankel. Oh, I guess I used it. This really is your original husband. We were with him from the day he left. I know he looks totally different, but this really is your original husband. So Okay. So Dichsiv, kind of like it says by Yosef, Vayak Yosef es echo v'im lo yikiru, that Yosef recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him. That when Yosef left his house at 17 years old, he didn't have a beard, he didn't have a beard. But now at the age of 39, he had a beard. Or gesunte, lange beard. So they didn't recognize him. But still, in this fancy case, where two witnesses said that the husband's in Wellwood, the guy shows up, nobody recognizes him. Two other witnesses come and say that it really is him. We're saying that nonetheless she could remain married to the second guy. So, but it's 2 against 2. And therefore, if she continues to sleep together with her second husband, then she'll have to bring an Ashram Talu. She can't do that. She can't put herself in a situation where she's going to have to bring an Ashram Talu. So, the plot thickens. Well, she got married to one of the witnesses, i.e., one of the people who's claiming that her husband is in Wellwood, who's claiming to know for a fact that her husband's in Wellwood. She then marries him. So now, as Rashi says, top line of Rashi, you only have to bring an Ashram Tali if you're uncertain. But this guy is certain that her original husband is in Wellwood. So therefore he's not going to have to bring a Ashram Tali. He goofa b'Ashram Tali kama. Yeah, but she's going to have to bring an Ashram Tali. She doesn't know. But Omer is barley. Yeah, but so much she says, no, I know. I've seen certain signs from my now husband or whatever that, no, I know, no, my original husband is in Wellwood. And therefore neither of them would have to bring an Ashram Tali. They could remain together. If that's the case, well then what's the Chiddush? What's the Chiddush? She was married. 2 witnesses come and say that her husband's in Wellwood. She marries one of the witnesses. After she's married, 2 other witnesses come and say that actually her husband's alive, essentially, or the husband shows up and 2 witnesses vouch for him. But what? We're saying then that she's allowed to remain married to her new husband. Isn't that obvious? Afilu Reb Menachem Reb Yossi Loka Omer. Even Reb Menachem Reb Yossi, who would say that they're not allowed to remain together, he only says that only if both sets of witnesses came before the marriage, before the second marriage. But if she got married to the second fellow and then only afterwards the husband shows up and only afterwards the other witnesses vouch that it's really her husband, Lo Amar. He would not say that they have to separate. The Tanyas we learn in the Brisa, if you have 2 witnesses saying the fellow's in Wellwood and 2 witnesses saying he's not, 2 witnesses say that she didn't get divorced and 2 witnesses say that she did get divorced. Well, she cannot get married. But if she does get married, then she can remain married. Rabbi Menachem Reb Yossi Omar Teitze. Rabbi Menachem Reb Yossi says they cannot remain married. Omar Rabbi Menachem Reb Yossi, and says Rabbi Menachem Reb Yossi Eimas Ani Omar Teitze. When do I say that they cannot remain married? Bizman Shabo Eidim Achakach Nises. When both sets of witnesses came before she got remarried. Avon Nises V'Achakach Bo Eidim Harizalo Teitze. But if she had already gotten married to the second guy and then the second pair of witnesses came, even Rabbi Menachem Reb Yossi would say that they could remain together. So therefore it's obvious that if we're talking about a situation where 2 witnesses tell this woman that her husband's in Wellwood and then she gets married to one of them and then only afterwards 2 other witnesses come to vouch for this guy who shows up to say that it's really her original husband, certainly they would be able to stay together because they're already married. So Kikam Rav Nami, look, when Rav says that they could remain married, Bizman Shebo Eidim Ve'achar Kach Nises, it's also talking about a situation where both pairs of witnesses came before she actually got married to the second guy. Mafukim into Rabbi Menachem Reb Yossi, what Rav is saying is that the law is not like Rabbi Menachem Reb Yossi, rather it's like the Tanna Kama, that they are allowed to remain together. Those who say that actually what Rav is saying is, look, no, the Davka, the reason why when there are 2 witnesses that say that her husband's in Wellwood, she's allowed to remain married to her second husband, it's Davka because they had gotten married before the second pair of witnesses came. But if both pairs of witnesses would have come and only then she would have gotten married, then of course she would have to she cannot remain together with her new husband. Rabbi Nachman bar Yossi, come on, Rabbi Nachman bar Yossi, like Rabbi Nachman bar Yossi, who says that if both sets of witnesses came before she got remarried, she would be unable to stay together with him. How do we know that if you have a kohen, and the kohen is married to somebody he's not allowed to be married to, so you have to force him to get to get unmarried? Rashi says, "Hakeu, hit him." Wow. Okay. Well, you have to make him keep him separate, even if it's against his will. If we're talking about a situation where you have, one of these witnesses is a kohen, and then he's claiming that this woman's this woman's husband is in Wellwood, and then. But it's talking about So if we're talking about where the kohen is right, where she didn't marry one of the witnesses, and right, it's not a situation where she says for sure that she knows that her husband's in Wellwood. So tzrich l'meimar, obviously, we'll force him to get out of that because that's not a definitive case. Right? Obviously, we'll force him to not remain with her. Rather, it's talking about where she marries one of the witnesses. One of the witnesses is a kohen, and he says for sure that her husband's in Wellwood, and she is also as certain, she's convinced that her husband's in Wellwood. And nonetheless, we're saying that we force them to get separated. So we see that they are not allowed to stay together. So Isser Kuna Shani. So we say that no, that when we're talking about a kohen over in this particular case, and Kohanim were more stringent about Vibai Seymour. If you want, I would say my dafnu be'edim. You know what it means that we make them get separate. It means that when this kohen tries to marry this woman, we then immediately try to find other witnesses who might be able to contradict this testimony in order to prevent this kohen from marrying this woman, since we want to be more stringent by Kohanim. By same or if you want to say Shabo Edim, or it could be talking about in the situation where the witnesses first came and then only afterwards they got married. Rabbi Nachman bar Yossi, it's like Rabbi Nachman bar Yossi who says that they have to separate. Omer says of Ashi, Milo Teitze, to come Rav. What does it mean when Rav says that if there are two witnesses, then she doesn't have to separate? Lo Teitze me'atera rishon. It means she doesn't have to separate from her original husband. Of course, she has to separate from her second husband because the first husband showed up. So rather it means that she can remain married to the first husband. Ha'amra Rav Chadazimna, but says the Gemara, wait, but Rav already said this one time. That if she got married without permission of Bezdin, i.e. with two witnesses, then she's permitted to go back to the original husband. That is the halacha. So the Gemara says, Rav did say it one time, but one of the times that he said it, it was only from an implication of the original case when he said it. So Rav really only said it once, but the second time we're hearing it was really just sort of an inference from the first time that he said it. When we say that they have to separate, it's only as long as she does not makrash lakrish to fight against, to disagree with the testimony of a makrash. So if she disagrees with the testimony, lo teitzi, then she could remain married. But ma'askina, what are we talking about? If we're talking about where she is arguing against that, right? Meaning, if she got married and then two witnesses came and say that her husband's still alive, and we're saying that since she is sort of arguing against them, contradicting them, so then she could remain married to the second guy. But if two witnesses are saying that her husband's still alive, how could she simply just contradict them and get away with it? Rather, it must be where there's only one witness who's saying that her original husband's still alive. And the reason is because she contradicted the fellow. But if she would keep quiet, so then they would not be able to stay together. But 1 second, didn't Ula say that wherever the Torah permitted one witness, so we treat them as two, in which case, even if it's one witness saying that her original husband is still alive, she wouldn't be able to contradict the witness because we would treat it like it's two, and she can't just argue against two. You can't trust one person in place of two. Yeah, but here we're talking about where like two witnesses came to testify that the original husband's alive, but they were people who are not normally allowed to give testimony. It's like Ibn Nechemia says, that whenever the Torah trusts one witness, so then then it just becomes like a majority rules kind of thing. And two women against a man are like two men against a man. It just becomes a numbers game. And therefore, in this case, if she just kind of keeps quiet, so then yeah, sure, it would be two witnesses against sort of the one witness who's saying that she is that her husband's dead. But since she's arguing against the two witnesses who are coming to say that her original husband is alive, so then she is believed in this case, since we're talking about Edim who are apostle. Okay, fine. If you want, I will say that if there was originally one witness who came to testify that her original husband's alive, well then even 100 women would be like one witness. Here, what are we talking about? Here it's talking about where a woman came to testify against to say that her original husband is still alive. But here and explain Ibn Nechemia in this way. Ibn Nechemia says that wherever the Torah believes one witness, so then you go based on majority. And we treat two women against one woman like two men against one man. But two witnesses against one man is like 50-50. And therefore, if you have two witnesses who came to testify that her original husband is still alive, but there's one witness who's testifying that her husband is in fact in Wellwood, so it's really just considered like one against one, and therefore if she contradicts them, she is believed. Friends, I gotta run. Peace out.